stop transcription. Okay, now we should be able to go. Thank y'all so much for bearing with us. We're happy to be on Teams. Makes it a little more accessible and gives you a little bit more of some features that we are happy to share with y'all. And I'm sure Miranda mentioned those to be able to have easy access to the file and to the video later. So I'm excited to be teaching y'all about clean living lifestyle. This is one of those classes, though, that can get very overwhelming. So we actually broke it into a part 1 and a part 2. And both of these have been previously recorded. So if you want to skip ahead to the good part and get to part 2 before we schedule that in the fall or spring, you're welcome to. There's just so much good content that you can share about clean living lifestyle. My name is Abby Horton, and I teach in the College of Nursing. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm a certified health and life coach. I'm a Wellbeing ambassador and one of your wellness class educators. My email is listed here, abby.horton@ua.edu, if you'd like to reach out. So our goals today are really just to talk about the lifestyle that is clean living, to discuss the importance of clean living and its impact on health, and to talk about specific strategies that you may want to adopt to have a more clean living lifestyle approach. So my disclaimer is that this is just for educational purposes only, and it doesn't serve as medical advice. I also want you to focus on what you can control, take what resonates with you, and leave the rest. Treat it like a menu, because making changes with your lifestyle, particularly when you're wanting to do clean swaps, is really kind of expensive and can be a little bit intimidating. And so you just want to start with one thing. And then when you make that change and that's doable for you and it works with your budget, then make another change and another. So I've actually been on a clean living lifestyle journey since the fall of 2011. And my journey started with having a hysterectomy at 27 because I was having a lot of health issues. And so November of 2011, I had this hysterectomy. And a few weeks before that, I reached out to a good friend that I had gone to college with here at UA, and I had noticed that she was making some clean living lifestyle choices. And I reached out and said, this has been an eye-opening experience for me, and I want to make some different choices. And so the things that I'm talking about that I think that you should consider to implement in your own lives has been over a decade worth of me making those changes. I didn't do it overnight. So baby steps, small progress is still progress, and reach out if you have questions. So clean living lifestyle is really a focus on intentional healthy choices in your diet, your lifestyle, and the products that you use. So cleaning products, hygiene products, anything that you use in and around and on your body. So our mindset is we really want to educate ourselves on what clean living can do for you. So really you want to read and research to start the journey. And for everyone on the call, there will be differences about, what you want to see, what you want to try, or what you want to do first. But really read and research and consume some good information, but don't get stuck in consumption of information. You really want to make sure that you take action, because you're never going to be ready and it's never going to be perfect. So be kind to your brain and your budget and just start small. We like to say ditch and switch one habit or one product at a time, and give yourself grace during the process, because it is truly a journey. So the impact of toxins, I think plastics are probably the thing that I really try to focus on first, because there's so many plastics and there's so many chemical compounds that we interface with on a day-to-day basis. I remember as a kid growing up, I was an 80s baby raised in the early 90s, and one of our partners for Adopt a School, their slogan was "Plastics makes it possible." And so it was a manufacturing plant that made a lot of plastics. And I think about that often, because we said that a lot at our school and at our pep rallies, because that was their slogan and they were a good provider for us. And plastic has made a lot of things possible, but it also has introduced a lot of chemicals and a lot of toxins into our everyday world. So everything from plastic straws to, the plastic drinks that we drink out of, the plastic, water bottles, all of those things that we're consuming, those plastics and those chemicals leach into the food or the water or the product that we're using. And it's nearly impossible to avoid plastics. And, plastics has made a lot possible. People who need to have straws, who, for health reasons can't drink out of a cup without a straw. That's a really vital thing. But we have to be really mindful of where we want to limit our exposure to plastics. Because we have things like xenobiotics and xenoestrogens that are chemical compounds that are found in these products and these medications and pesticides and other carcinogens that are foreign to our body. And so our immune system creates an inflammatory response as a result of that exposure. And when we're constantly exposing our bodies to these things, our bodies can't rest and repair like it should. And so we can end up having issues with chronic inflammation, skin problems like acne and rashes, or psoriasis or eczema, brain fog, blood sugar imbalances, anxiety, depression, or other mental health symptoms, weight loss resistance, which was a part of my story, persistent body odor, thyroid issues, and then just overall not feeling good. You can just have malaise and fatigue, and that can be in the form of achy muscles and joints. And so, this is a very, very brief overview of the impact of toxins. Since 1938, the Environmental Working Group has really talked about how, there's not been legislation since 1938. And so the FDA doesn't test the ingredients of products for efficacy and safety uh, for certain things that we have in our beauty industry. And so it's estimated that a female adult American will expose themselves just in the morning getting ready, just face products, hair products, etc., getting ready in the morning, will have exposed our skin to about 200 to 300 chemicals before breakfast, because it's indicating that in the morning routine, that's how many products we use. Just around 20 is on average the number of products that most adult females use in the US. And so that's about 200 to 300 chemicals that are estimated to be on our skin. And our skin is the largest organ in our body and on our body, and it is a really absorbent. So anything that we put on our skin is going to be absorbed through the bloodstream. And actually, it can be more important what you put on your skin than what you ingest through eating and consuming, because you have other processes when you eat and drink that filters out some of those toxins. But when you're putting it directly on your skin, within about 20 to 30 seconds, what's on your skin can be in your bloodstream, and it is not having the benefit of being filtered in that way that food is. So we haven't had any substantial legislation that has really passed regulating the cosmetics industry since 1938. And we know that many, many chemicals were introduced, particularly in the 1960s and 1970s, when we had a lot of, especially with like NASA and different companies that were trying to get us to space. The space race really opened up the door for extra research and dollars and funding to create these chemicals and to create these products that were needed to go to space. And so then we became the consumers of those products because they were made public. And so we have a lot of chemicals. It's estimated to be around 70,000 chemicals that have been introduced since this time that we have not had complete legislation on and regulation of. So that's important. Beauty Counter is a product that I'll use, certainly not promoting that here today, but it's a company that I believe in that has good products that work well, but also are safer products for us to use. And they have a never list. And this is an example of the things that are on their never list. So things that we should never use in our products because they're not harmful. They're not only harmful for us, but they're also potentially harmful to like the animals and the test subjects that are used in these corporations to test out the products, which are usually done on things like bunnies or mice. So not only harmful to us, but can be harmful to the test subjects, which are usually animals. So it's important to think about this again when you're looking at reading your labels, whether it's a food label or whether it's an ingredient label. You want to know what's in the product, because if you wouldn't feel comfortable eating it, and kind of putting it in your mouth and eating it, consuming it in that way, you probably want to consider not putting it on your skin or on your hair, because you're going to be exposed to that chemical or that toxin. So about 26 seconds is what is estimated for it to be from skin to bloodstream. And so Again, this is science backed and research backed. And so it's not to scare you, because I think sometimes this can be scary and sometimes it can be overwhelming and expensive to make a lifestyle change. But it also can be scary and expensive and overwhelming when you're faced with a health crisis. And so today, about 1 in 2 people in the US will be estimated or expected to develop cancer in their lifetime. It was 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, and now it's 1 in 2. So, over the course of your life, it's likely that you may encounter a diagnosis or someone you love. I recently was diagnosed with a tumor in the fall and had surgery on week 3, being back from my FMLA period, because I had a tumor that impacted my adrenal gland and my liver. And after having a number of health issues over the years, I think most of the challenges that I was having were related to this tumor. And so I'm sharing today from the heart, because this is something that over 10 years ago, I knew I was having health issues, and unfortunately, the tumor wasn't discovered until recently. But when I'm telling you this, I'm teaching you from experience, not from a textbook. And I know how hard it can be to make these changes, but I also know how hard it is to walk through, getting a call that you have a tumor and waiting to know whether it's cancerous or not. And so I hope this, talk today leaves you feeling empowered and encouraged. Um, to make change and to be able to be your own advocate for your health. And certainly, we want to avoid cancer and those kinds of diagnoses and chronic health issues if we can. The most toxic things in your home, other than food, just looking at the top 8 overall, is water bottles, plastic food containers, carpet because of the off gassing, pizza boxes because of the chemicals to make those be sturdy and resistant to the heat and the staining. Um, Microwaved popcorn, hand sanitizer, sofas, again, any kind of off-gassing from sofas, furniture, clothing. If you buy furniture or something, online that has a particular smell that you feel like you have to air it out, you probably need to set it outside, because, or put it, maybe in your garage if that's a possibility. But you want to get it outside to air out and off gas, because you don't want those chemicals in your home. And then strawberries, because you can see here they're so porous, and so they hang on to pesticides and different things that they're exposed to in the agricultural process. So toxins, things like diesel fuel. So it's important that when you're filling up your gas, maybe if you're doing that today, don't stand outside the gas pump. Fill it up, put the gas pump in, and then go back and sit in your car so that you're not getting exposed to those fumes. You have the PBA and PBC, but any kind of chemical compound, I just call them chemical cousins. So just because it says it's PBA free doesn't mean that it's not, a hazardous thing for your health or a concern. Lead is still in a lot of toys that you get from overseas. Lead is still in paint that's on the walls from the 1960s and beyond. Mercury from the fish that we consume, also mercury in amalgam fillings. Every time you're biting on a mercury amalgam filling, you're having micro abrasions and you're getting exposure to that mercury in your mouth. The over 4,000 chemicals that are harmful in cigarettes and in vaping, exhaust and pollution from our cars and just in the air, alcohol, particularly alcohol that is not well made. The cheaper versions of alcohol a lot of times do not have the good filtering process to get those chemicals out. Um, and not to mention the effect that it has on your blood sugar and just your immune system. Pesticides, insecticides, flame retardants on clothing, especially clothing for children. I like to get the flame retardant free, pajamas, especially when my kids were really young. The ones that are well fitted, that fit like a second skin, typically don't have the flame retardants on there. Of course, fire safety is really important, and a lot of children, were injured or died in fires, house fires, and so they put flame retardant chemicals on children's pajamas for many, many years and still do as a customary practice to prevent children from being harmed in that way. But then also we have to weigh that with the issue of having that much chemical on your skin at night. And so look for flame retardant free but closely fitted pajamas. if that's a concern for you. And certainly all of this, you'll want to talk to your pediatrician or your doctor, someone who's trusted in your circle, and do your own research. We're just presenting options here for you. Dry cleaning, even dry cleaning at home, can expose you to a lot of chemicals. If you must dry clean, then make sure that you take out the clothing and take it off the hangers and out of the plastic bags because it traps that chemical in there. And you want to make sure that you air it out and put it on a new hanger and let it get some air. Aluminums and parabens, anything that has an aerosolized spray can be a source of toxins. Food, pesticides, and chemicals, tin poisoning, so try not to drink out of aluminum cans. And then fluoride. And fluoride is a little bit more controversial. If you go to a holistic dentist or a dentist who has a biological and holistic background, or just someone who's kind of more open to new research about fluoride, you will see that more and more doctors and dentists are recommending not to have fluoride in their toothpaste. Now, I will say that, there's research that supports that it helps with cavities. There's research that says it doesn't help. There's research that says that it causes the calcification of your pineal gland in your brain. There's so much controversial, narratives about fluoride. And we went fluoride free for about a year. And my kids are particularly susceptible to fluoride. And so when we went free fluoride, I did fine and my husband did fine, but because our kids are growing and just they have different genetics than we do, they were more likely to have cavities, right? They're not as diligent brushers either because they're kids. And so we went fluoride free. It worked great for me and for my husband. It did not work great for our kids. And so when they started getting cavities, we did switch them back to fluoride toothpaste and a me paste that does some remineralization of their teeth. So in nursing, we talk about a cost benefit analysis of a real problem versus the risk or the potential of a problem. So we tried it. I would prefer that they didn't have fluoride, and I would prefer that they didn't have cavities, and that did not work. And so a real problem versus, a potential problem, the cavities were a real problem, and the fluoride risk of exposure became more of a potential problem. So we switched back to fluoride. So I just want to give you some real life examples of how we kind of navigate that because it's not, a clear cut protocol that you do this and this will work. It's what works for you and it's what works in the season of life that you're in. So clean your food. This is one that I actually learned from my OBGYN years ago. My youngest kids are about to turn 11, so I learned this about 11 years ago. But he said to fill a bowl with one solution of a cup of vinegar to 4 parts water, and then add Celtic sea salt to make the water cloudy. And then put all of your fruits and vegetables in that bowl to wash off all of the pesticides and chemicals and, frankly, the dirt that is on there. And then dry it really well and then repackage it in, glass containers, not the food containers that it all arrived in at the grocery store. After you've soaked it and everything, you'll do the cold water rinse and dry and then store in that way. And that will help get a lot of those pesticides and chemicals off. The first time I did that, I did it with a bunch of apples, and the waxy feeling that you have on an apple is that wax and seal and the pesticides and the chemicals and all of the things that are used on it. And of course, apples naturally have a little bit of that waxy texture depending on the variety of it. But you'll notice that the water gets very dirty and that the apple or whatever fruit you have feels very different, and it even impacts the taste. The taste can actually feel a little cleaner once you do that rinse. So this is an easy, simple way to clean your food and to make a lifestyle change. So some other things that you can do, this is just a checklist for you. I've got 2 slides here that have a lot of information on them. Again, use it as a menu, as a checklist for you to just take a step, a baby step. So you can download the Think Dirty app. You can also download the Environmental Working Group app. Both are great in terms of figuring out what products and foods are going to be better choices for you. And they use the red what I call the red light system. If it's red, it's caution, try to avoid. If it's yellow, it's use, with caution, and kind of minimize what you use in that yellow category. And then green gets the thumbs up, you're okay to use it. And so you want to use the Think Dirty and the Environmental Working Group app to help you make those choices. Reduce your plastic use, open windows to air out your home. Stop using candles and other fragrances. One of the reasons why I am sounding so congested and losing my voice today is because I'm very sensitive to fragrances, and I was exposed to a lot of fragrances over the weekend. And, here we are several days later, and I'm having still a reaction to that because I haven't fully recovered from my surgery and my immune system. And so, it's not good for you even if you aren't super sensitive like I am. So if you have a Glade plug-in or some other plug-in at your home or your office or in your car, please take it out and throw it away. The research is not controversial on this, and it is without question as harmful or more harmful than vaping and smoking cigarettes and other things that you can smoke. So if you have a Scentsy candle, a Glade plug-in, a Pura, that's the hot new thing that people are using, the Pura plugins. Any kind of fragrance that's a plug-in, anything that's hanging from your rearview mirror or plugged into your, little AC vent in the car or at home, throw those away because it's really unhealthy for you, for your pets, and for your family members, your coworkers, your friends, everyone who's being exposed. It's as bad as secondhand smoke. So think about that. Candles, there are some candles that are made with beeswax and have really good quality ingredients and that aren't as harmful. But the traditional candle that you're going to find on sale at your big box store or that you're going to buy is going to be toxic and is going to give off fumes and fragrance that you don't want to be ingesting or inhaling. So please make that swap. That's an easy one. You can get essential oils that are, medical grade essential oils that are easy to use and you can diffuse if that's something that you are wanting to do. There are perfumes that have clean scents that are made using clean products. So there are natural alternatives, but always just not using that is going to be the best option. You want to swap to healthier cleaning products. So, the cleaning products that you use, like your Clorox, your bleach, and all of that, there are other healthier alternatives that are still as effective at killing things, at disinfecting. And most of the time, if we're looking at what we call the dwell time, most of us are not actually using the products appropriately because it has a dwell time of how long it has to sit on the surface to be effective. And most of us, myself included, my hands raised, we just squirt the cleaner on and then we wipe it off immediately. And so the effectiveness or efficacy that we think that we're getting from using the Clorox or the bleach or the whatever, we're probably actually not actually reaching that because we're not letting it sit like we should. So there are other things like vinegar solutions. There is Branch Basics, there's Young Living Thieves Cleaner. All of those have been proven effective to disinfect to, a high level. Now, if you're, facing COVID or you have some other communicable disease or, something that's special and you've been told to use a particular product like, Clorox or bleach or something like that, a specific disinfectant, then by all means do. During COVID, we did use more of the, traditional disinfectants because so much was unknown. So I break my own rules, but I want you to know that that's something that you just need to exercise your judgment with. So certainly there are times where we do use things that, are not the clean or green version, but you just have to make the best choice with that cost benefit analysis. So try having air cleaning houseplants. There are a lot of great ones. If you do a quick Google search, you can see the top picks for those houseplants. Avoiding aluminum foil and reheating things in your microwave is really important because you're really taking out when you're microwaving if you don't even think about the radiation piece, which people tell us in science that the radiation from microwaves is not harmful. Even if you take out that piece, the more that you're cooking or heating a food like that, the more that the nutrients and things that you've probably already partially cooked out are starting to fade. And so we try to avoid leftovers as much as we can in our household for that reason, and because of the enzymatic activity that happens with leftovers. A lot of times people can't tolerate those really well, and then you're not always getting the same nutrient value when you're reheating and eating days later. So again, did I start doing that 10 years ago? Absolutely not. But is that something that I'm mindful of now? Yes, I'm in a place where I can be mindful of that. Buying clean beauty products, I think, is really helpful. I like clean beauty products from Young Living. I like their makeup line. I like Beauty Counter's makeup line. I also love some products that Target and Ulta have where you can go in and say that you want the clean version of a product. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than the traditional product. So I will do that as well. Lots of good, options out there. And those two apps that I mentioned, Think Dirty and EWG, will give you some ideas because you can use their barcode scanner. And while you're shopping, you can get real-time feedback on, is this a green light product? And I try to stay with all greens and then a minimal of yellows. So fabric softener, try to avoid that. Try to wash fabrics before you wear. So when you go and buy something from, Shein or Amazon or Target or wherever, wash those things before you wear them so that you can get those chemicals to dilute as much as you can before you're putting them on your skin. Drink filtered water as much as you can and use a reusable water bottle if possible. And be cautious about pesticides in the home. So for us and our family, we have always chosen to have pesticides sprayed outside of the home around the perimeter and in the yard, but we do not have pesticides sprayed inside the house, particularly when we had children under 5, because under 5, those kids are the most at risk based on their age because they're on the floor more. They may be babies and crawling, they may be putting things in their mouths. And so under 5, if you have children in the home under 5, you want to make sure that you're cautious about what's on the floor. um, Pesticides get tracked in chemicals from our shoes, so you may want to go to a no shoe at the house policy, but you also want to be cautious about like carpet cleaner. Carpet cleaner on rugs can actually cause a lot of serious health conditions for kids. There's just a lot of research on that. So if you have someone under 5 in your home, you definitely want to even take it a step further in terms of the prevention that you do. And then ditch and switch to clean the household products and the personal care hygiene products. And don't be greenwashed because there's a lot of people out there who want to capitalize on your clean living mindset, and they tell you that our product is clean when it really isn't. An example of this is Mrs. Meyer's. Mrs. Meyer's, has really a great example of a greenwash product. When you go and look at the ingredient list, and then when you go and scan it in the apps that I mentioned, they don't have good ratings for their products because they're not clean and they're not green. And a lot of times, what's so sad about the greenwash products and upsetting is that they're actually telling you it's safe, so you feel like you can trust them, and then they're actually charging you more for that product, and it may be just as unhealthy or even more so than some of the traditional products that you could get. So just keep that in mind. And also, again, I want to emphasize again, do not get overwhelmed with this or think about how you should have done something differently, because that was me 10 years ago of, oh my goodness, I let my kids be exposed to this and I'm a nurse. I should have known better. So try not to let yourself feel overwhelmed or guilty about it. And just know that most people are not going to be able to actually make, more than one or two changes at a time just because of the practicalities of everyday life, and you've got to move on to the next thing once you get off this call, but also just because of the budget. The budget can be really difficult with this. So when you use something, I say pick a couple of things at a time, one or two. And when you use that up, so instead of going home and throwing out your shampoo today, when you run out of your traditional shampoo, then just replace it with a clean product. And then your deodorant. I think those are two of the biggest ones that you can do right off the bat, because you want an aluminum-free deodorant, not an antiperspirant, because it is going to have that aluminum and other chemicals in it. And I could talk all day about deodorants. That's one of the hardest things I think for you to find a replacement for. So I'll tell you a few of my favorites. Entry mats at your doors is the first line of defense to keeping things out of your house. but also taking your shoes off are really helpful. We do not do that anymore now that my kids are older, but we did that for a really long time. It still would be beneficial, but it's just not practical right now in our season of life. Consider your furniture and the building materials that you use. Try to look for low or no VOC paints. Keep the humidity at optimal levels. That's really important to make sure that your AC and your vents are all working well. That is another source of mold too. So making sure that if you have a stale smell in your AC or your heat when you switch, sometimes that's just dust, but sometimes it's that you actually have mold in the vents or in the ductwork. So you might want to have those inspected. It's recommended to do that yearly. Prioritizing non-toxic mattresses and bedding is really important because you spend so much time on your mattress and in your bed. Switching to glass or, a sustainable metal instead of a plastic. Avoiding nonstick. In terms of the kitchen, get rid of your Teflon. If your Teflon is flaking, if you have a minor scratch in your Teflon pan, then those chemicals are leaching out into your food most likely. So get rid of your Teflon pans. I am not the cook in my home, and so the fact that we do not have Teflon pans anymore really speaks to the fact that I was able to get my family on board. My husband cooks a lot of our dinners, and he loved Teflon pans, and I had to show him a lot of research about why it's not healthy to use those. So we do mostly cast iron in, like all clad, and those are more expensive to use and they're more difficult to clean, but it's a lot healthier. Use a natural hand soap. So instead of having a lot of fragranced body washes and things, we buy natural hand soap from Mana. We wash and clean our clothes with drops, and that's a really good clean product. And it still comes in the little packs, so we're not having to make our own laundry soap and we're not having to use a liquid, which I think is really messy and impractical for a big family like I have. We try to use antibacterial products mindfully, so we don't use a lot of hand sanitizer. We'll use Thieves or we'll use Dr. Bronner's hand sanitizer because it has less chemicals in it. It's always better to wash with soap and water anyway. And ensure that your hair and your skin products, again, are going to be clean. And that's things like making sure that if you are getting your hair colored, that they don't go all the way down to the root and get on the scalp. That you're choosing a clean dye for your hair if you are coloring your hair, and that, perhaps you consider not going as frequently or you give it up altogether. I gave it up altogether 10 years ago, and I know I'm not at the stage where I have, gray hair. I may make a different choice when I get a little bit older, and start having some changes with my hair. But for right now, that's not my plan because my health is more important. And then check your home, car, office, and anywhere that you're hanging out a lot for mold because that is a one of the foundational things that impact our health that we don't talk about a lot. And then try to buy organic coffee, peanuts, coffee, um, mushrooms, different things like that that grow in the ground have high mold content, and that's in the form of mycotoxins. And so you could be having some health issues and some immune issues just simply because you're eating things that have mold. So it's not just about mold in your shower or mold from a leak, but it's also about mold that you're eating. So people who say that they're allergic to peanuts or that they don't tolerate coffee well, it may actually be a sensitivity to mold in addition to that true allergy that they have. Nourish your body. Nutrition is the foundation of health. Health is everything. When you don't have health, you realize that nothing else matters. And I've walked through that personally. And you have to look at how you make changes because it's not easy to make changes, even when you realize that there are some changes that are needed. So drink filtered water about half your body weight in ounces a day, but typically no more than 100 to 120 ounces because you can overhydrate. You want to make sure that your urine is a pale yellow color. You don't want your urine to be completely clear. And you also want to remember that when you're checking your urine, you want to get like a disposable cup. Like you could get like a Dixie plastic cup and use that to collect your urine because you know that it's being diluted in the toilet with the water that's there. So it's always going to be a little bit darker than what you're seeing. unless you're catching it to observe. Eat the rainbow, so eat veggies most, eat good fruits. The sugar in fruits has been vilified a lot lately, but your body responds to that differently. There are times where you need to limit your fruit consumption, but in general, it's okay for most people. Um, so water first, veggies most is what we say. The 2B mindset, Alana Milstein, and she's a registered dietitian and works with Body, which is formerly Beachbody. She's written a book, and that's one of her taglines. Focus on a whole food diet and eat fiber. So I try not to limit any food group unless there's a medical reason to do so. So I think most things in moderation is my mantra. Avoid processed or packaged foods. Try not to drink your calories. I love a good Coke from Chick-fil-A, but try not to drink your calories, and that includes coffees and teas. Count your chemicals, not just calories. A lot of times I think we're under eating in terms of our nourishment and our calorie intake, and we're consuming things that are too processed and have too many chemicals. Limit your sugar and other inflammatory foods. Consider intermittent fasting. I think that can really help with inflammation. That could be its own class in and of itself. Track your food and keep a food journal. I think taking pictures of what you eat and drink is really helpful because then you know for sure, okay, what was the portion size? When did I eat it? And you're going to have a timestamp and you know exactly. It gives you a lot more data than simply just writing down that you had a hamburger today. Think about, the moderation mantra, how you can apply it to your life, and try not to moralize food as good or bad. Y'all, food is not just fuel. I'm sorry. I'm from the South, and food is celebratory, food is cultural, food is so much more than fuel to me. And that is why I have to be careful about my relationship with food because it is more than fuel. And so, food is not inherently good or bad. There are some foods that are labeled as healthy that certain patient populations can't eat because they have restrictions and it's not healthy for them. So it's just important that we don't always label this as a good food or a bad food. It's about what your body needs. And then ask for professional help in and when and if you need it. Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. This is a list that gets updated every year. You can go to the Environmental Working Group to see what this year's Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen is. This is from last year, and they've recently updated it, and it stays about the same because it's based on the skin of the fruit or vegetable. So, for example, pineapples are usually never on the Dirty Dozen list because it has such a thick outer shell, but things like strawberries or peaches are going to be more likely to have pesticides that really get into the fruit because of the thin skin. So this doesn't change much, but they do update it every year or so. Weight loss, y'all. The thing about weight loss is a lot of us have weight loss resistance because we have an overexposure and because we are really inflamed. And so I want y'all to think about making it safe for your body to lose weight. So adipose tissue or fat tissue actually stores toxins and chemicals that the body can't process. And so if you have a lot of extra weight, and I've lost about 84, 85 pounds over the last few years on my health journey. I didn't have a quick weight loss success story. It's taken me several years to get that weight off. For me, like, I knew that I was gonna have to take it slow because as you release those fat cells, they have to shrink. And before they shrink, when you get rid of the fat out of the cell, the fat may go away, but then they fill with water. It's called the swoosh or the whoosh effect. And so then what happens is that fat cell has to say, okay, we're not going to fill that back up with fat or chemicals. We've got to get rid of it. So while you're losing weight, a lot of times people actually feel worse. And I certainly did the first, 20 or so, 30 or so pounds, because you're also getting rid of toxins and chemicals that have been stored there. That's particularly true if you hold your weight around your midsection and your torso, around the core or trunk of the body. And that was what my weight loss and my weight gain was really in that core section. And so definitely take it slow if you've had a lot of exposure because you're going to need to really flush those out by sweating, by drinking water, by moving your body. That's how you get rid of those toxins and chemicals. So you've got to make it safe for you to lose weight. Move your body. I listed lots of things here. You want to make sure that your detox pathways are open. So if you're not sweating, if you're not going to the bathroom regularly in terms of having a bowel movement, if you're not crying, if you're not able, to have all of those pathways open, if you're not urinating enough, then you're not going to be able to detox your body. And trying to lose weight is going to be really difficult. And trying to clean up your diet and lifestyle will be difficult, even if you're not on a weight loss journey. And so make sure that you're adding in fun movement, not just exercise that you're, going to do a really rigorous workout. Orange Theory and CrossFit are great, but don't start there. Walking more, parking in the back of the lot, taking a flight of stairs, even if you have, like, I have 3 flights of stairs to get to my office. I couldn't do 3 flights of stairs 3 weeks ago. But what I did is I took one flight and then I took the elevator up to the second and third floor. Um, and then, I was able to increase that every week. So now I can go up and down 3 flights of stairs to get to my office and to get down. So take it incrementally. Make it fun. Anything that you do that is not fun is probably not going to be sustainable. Katie Moore is an influencer on social media on Instagram, and she says if you can't do it for 3 years, don't do it for 3 minutes because you're not going to stick with it. It's not going to be sustainable. I really enjoy chiropractic care regularly, once or a week or every 2 weeks. I think is really beneficial. Find a chiropractor that you like and you trust. I also really cannot say enough good things about going to physical therapy, and it's not just for when you've had an accident or an injury or when you've had a surgery like me, but they really can help you with your movement. I was having a lot of pain, and part of what we discovered this week is because my hip is out of alignment. So while I was attributing it to the surgery just was making that pain worse. And once I got an adjustment of physical therapy, I had a lot less pain and I was able to move better and more freely. So if you don't know, if you don't go, you're not going to realize that. So definitely build in more meaningful movement every day, at least 30 minutes to 40 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. Rest your body. So that's what I'm going to do when I get home today. I'm going to rest. I'm going to make my bedroom a sanctuary, and I'm going to, clock out so that I can get some extra sleep so that my body can heal itself. It's still trying to repair from surgery. Now it's trying to overcome allergies or fragrance or whatever it is. So we really have to prioritize things. Just because we know it intellectually doesn't mean that we're going to be completely illness free, or even that we're going to practice what we teach, right? We've got to implement this and choose this every day. And I have to choose this lifestyle every day. So you can use dust covers to reduce allergens, limit your tech and devices, avoiding blue light from your devices after 9, or using blue light blocking glasses, keeping your bedroom for sleep, keeping it cool, dark, and quiet. Comfort is key. Have a dedicated sleep routine like we do for kids. We need to do the same thing for us. A dedicated bedtime, dedicated pajamas, a warm bath or shower, turn the lights out, read a story. We need to do the same thing. We're just big kids. Go to bed by 10. Most of our healing happens between 10 and midnight. It's just a part of our circadian rhythm. Catch up on sleep by going to bed earlier, not sleeping later. There's a lot of research on why that is. All of this, every slide could be its own class, y'all. See a healthcare provider if you're waking up more tired than when you went to sleep. You probably have some type of underlying health condition or sleep disorder, or maybe it's stress, but you need to be seen about. And then sleep helps your body heal and restore. So if you're not sleeping, then you're not going to feel well. And if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to feel well. It's not just about the number of hours, it's also about the quality of sleep. And we don't talk about that enough. There's a lot that can be said about reducing your EMF, or your electronic magnetic wave frequency exposure. There's lots of things that you can do here, but basically just don't always be connected to a device. Put your cell phones away. Try not to use Bluetooth. Try to use wired headphones and different things. Don't use your phone or your laptop or whatever electronic while it's being charged. Try not to let things sit in your lap or on your body for long. Don't put your phone in and near your body. All workout clothes now have a pocket for your phone. Try to avoid that as much as you can. I don't wear wearable technology because I don't want that constant pinging. Like, I don't want to have that EMF exposure. So my watch is a cheap watch from Target that, just tells the time. It doesn't tell me anything else. But really do try to keep devices away from your body and make choices about what works best for you. So you may need your wireless headphones, but you may choose not to use like an Apple Watch, or you may do better in another area, and that's okay. Greenwashing, I mentioned what this is, how you can spot it and what you can do. And again, the best thing to do is use the two apps I mentioned so that you can scan the barcodes. And then eventually you'll start to learn what are good brands and good products, and you don't have to rely on the app as much. And these are all going to be shared to you so that you don't have to take notes and we don't have to cover every single thing on the slides. But I just want to give you a lot of information so that you can choose something to start with today. So this is the Environmental Working Group website, and it helps you really track down. So if you don't want to download the app, you can go onto the website and you can get lots of good information there. And it has areas of focus, and it talks about the research so that you know that you're making a really good informed choice. Then you also have things like, regifting, recovering, reselling, returning, and letting things rot. It's the hierarchy of needs. So I love that it says with apologies to Maslow, because I love Maslow's hierarchy. We reference that a lot in nursing, but use what you have, borrow if you can, swap with someone, thrift it, make it, and then if you can't do those things, buy it. But you also can have these others where you rethink your choices, refuse single use, reduce your consumption, reuse everything that you can, refurbish old stuff, repair before you replace, repurpose, so be creative. And then recycle. And this is not to encourage you to, have a lot of clutter around your home, but it's just before you toss it, or before you go and buy it and add to cart, can you find something else, some other way? And that is not only stewarding your resources well, it's stewarding the environment well, and it's impacting your health. So it's a win across the board. Some other products that you can swap. This is a list of things that I think is really helpful when you're starting to make choices. Again, I like to start with shampoo and deodorant. I use Curie, so it's Curie, and I order that deodorant offline to be able to have a clean deodorant, and it's a spray, which I prefer. But there's lots of good clean choices, and I have used most all of them to try to find one that works well for me. If you can't switch to a clean deodorant, try the armpit detox. You can look online, and there's a recipe that uses bentonite clay and apple cider vinegar and water, and you make a paste and put that under your arms, so that when you're getting some of that body odor smell that you're using antiperspirant for, you can actually do the armpit detox, and you eventually can really go without deodorant most days, even in Alabama summer heat. But these are some things to swap out. So I have a couple of slides that shows you examples of things. So dryer balls, instead of using dryer sheets, those are very toxic. Drops laundry detergent. They also have dishwasher detergent. Branch Basics cleaning. I've also used Lume deodorant. It works really well, but I wanted to switch to a spray. Thieves toothpaste. There's also some other options that have remineralization toothpaste. So that's an option that you can investigate. A reusable water bottle, showing you that you're switching from Teflon to a different type of pan. Flawless and Five, some beauty counter makeup. And this is just to get y'all started. Epsom salts for your bath, essential oils, make sure they're medical grade. Clean hygiene products, so period products like tampons and pads, I think, are still a better option. Using a menstrual cup or menstrual panties, they have a lot of plastics and chemicals exposures, and we've seen that recently in the news. Picking a healthy sunscreen. So Supergoop is another one that's really popular right now. Celtic sea salt instead of using regular table salt. Trying to use organic cotton is really helpful. It's a breathable fabric. It's just better for your body than the synthetic fabrics that we use today. but you want to make sure it doesn't have the traditional cotton that's going to have more chemicals. Dr. Bronner's is a really good brand. They have a shaving soap and then a hand sanitizer. So those are some good choices to start there. And then more information about why to ditch toxic air fresheners, candles, plug-ins, wax melts, reed diffusers, and then conventional perfumes and colognes. And then there's some more resources here for you. Instant Loss and Crunchy and Curious are Instagram accounts you can follow for clean eating and clean living. A picture of some of the apps and some of the hashtags that I use to follow social media accounts to learn more. And then there's also a Sift app that helps with some of the food labels. So those can be really tricky to start to learn. So we hope that this was inspirational for you. We really value your input. So if you have things that you'd like to see covered in future classes, whether it's about clean living lifestyle or not, or topics or products or resources that you would like to see, you're welcome to email me and you're welcome to put in the chat as well. And I like to always say, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. It's a quote by Arthur Ashe, because so often we get overwhelmed with what we can't do that we don't take action on the little things where we actually can make some changes. And small action is really what we need to do to focus on moving the needle forward. Where can we make progress? We have social media sites that we would love for you to follow on our website, our Facebook, Instagram, and blog. The Wellness and Work Life team do a phenomenal job of managing those. And here is our slide on how to reach out for more information and my email again. So I'm going to close that out so that I can get back to where I can see some names and faces and get to the chat. We have just a few minutes left, so if y'all have a question or a comment, please feel free to put the questions in the question and answer box, or if y'all have feedback in the chat. And thank y'all as I navigated my first live presentation on Microsoft Teams.
Hey, Abby, we do have one question in the Q&A box. Is there research about incense?
So incense, it's all back to the type and the grade. And yes, there is research that can be done. If you go to one of the library databases and do a quick search, what I would say about that is that they're not all inherently, harmful for you, but it depends on the type of instance, the brand, how you're exposing yourself to it. And some people are more sensitive to that than others. But yes, that's another great example. Thank you for that question, and thanks for helping out, Miranda. I'm so glad. I love to see all these comments in the chat. And Miranda's already put in her clean living lifestyle slides for us, so thank you. Y'all can grab those there. I'm working through the information that y'all are listing here. Thank y'all so much for the messages. That's one thing on Teams is they don't pop up like they do in Zoom, so I'm kind of going back through and seeing them all. Thank you. Great. I don't think I missed anything. But you can always reach out to me if y'all have a question or concern. And thanks so much for giving me grace about coming in from my simulation. I'm headed back to another 1 o'clock simulation, and for my cold symptoms. I appreciate that. But I hope y'all have a great day. Remember, just one change, one next baby step at a time, and you can do this. Don't get overwhelmed by my 10-year journey, because it has taken me a lot of years to make mistakes and to make different choices. So don't feel like you have to be perfect with it. Just do what you can, and reach out for resources, because maybe your friend is doing the same thing but you don't know about it, so maybe they have a deodorant recommendation for you to try. I would say of all of the things that you're going to swap out, the deodorant is going to be the most frustrating, because we're in Alabama and it's summertime. So I hope that y'all leave inspired, and I'm going to leave y'all with a big roll tide. Thank y'all. Bye guys.